I think so too. That way she's not in. Yeah, like right.
Lovely. It's a good. Do you want to just leave this? Do you want to clip this onto?
I'm sorry.
This like clips onto pants. Like you could put it on your waist.
I have no, oh, I have a pocket. Yeah, just put it in.
Perfect pockets for these microphones. Perfect. Good job. Good.
It's a good thing
I know. We didn't even put two.
Do you have water? Do you need water? Is that your water?
Yes.
So it will kick in.
Yeah. I'm gonna. I'll need it. Welcome everyone.
I brought my water.
Just check. Rabbi's going to welcome. I'll introduce you and then we'll let you speak and then we'll do.
So I'll speak for about 40 minutes.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And then we'll do questions and answers.
And it is, but in actuality, our seventh graders study on Wednesday night, and so we've always taken the opportunity to have a commemoration of the Holocaust for Yom Hashoah with them. And we always have a survivor here to speak, because the fact of the matter is, at some point in all of our lives, we will not have the survivors here with us, and we will not hear their stories firsthand. And that's why it's critical for us to be witness tonight. I'm especially moved because we're joined by members of the Greater Freehold Clergy Association. We have Pastor Matt, Karen Powell, Monsignor Siriani, and Reverend Gronveld. And they are here because for the first time in the 23 years that I've been here as part of the Greater Freehold Clergy Association, because of the rising anti-Semitism in our community, we discussed what we could do to stem that tide, and part of it was Holocaust education. And so for the first time, we've invited the Greater Freehold Clergy Association and their members to come and join us this evening. So I do encourage you, before the night is over, if you look around and there's someone who you haven't seen at Friday night services who isn't familiar to you, to make sure to say hello and introduce yourself and get to know one another. And I just also want to add in that on the 26th, on April 26th at 2 o'clock, we'll be joining as a Greater Freehold Interfaith community to pack hygiene bags and food bags for EHAP, the Emergency Housing and Advocacy Program. I still need about 150 packets of tuna and a whole bunch of hand sanitizers, so please sign up for those. But I hope that you'll join us at St. Rose of Lima at 2:30 and come and meet members of the community. Let's get to know one another and share why our faith is important to us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our education director, who is wonderful, Melissa Pescatori, and she's going to introduce our speaker.
Thanks, Rabbi. And it's really wonderful to have clergy and from the Greater Freehold Clergy Association and other members from the community here tonight, as Rabbi mentioned. I'm Melissa Pescatori. I'm the education director here at Temple Sheri Yemuth. And as the Rabbi mentioned, during our 7th grade class throughout the year on Wednesday nights, we study the Holocaust for most of the year. And this is always a kind of culminating moment for us when we're just gratified and honored to have a Holocaust survivor come to speak. So our survivor, Georgette, is here with us tonight. Georgette Chenitz was born in France in 1941. She asked if she should speak in French or English tonight. I said English maybe would be the preferred option. So she is going to tell us about her family's story of survival. And she lives in Edison, New Jersey. So it's really always especially meaningful when we have local survivors who can come speak to us. So I'm going to turn it over to Georgette, and then we'll have time for questions after she speaks. Thank you, please.
So I want to welcome you all. I'm very honored to be talking with you. Can you hear me? Everything okay? Very, very honored because as a survivor and as a Jewish woman, I am very, I'm very involved in telling the story. It should never be forgotten. The Holocaust happened 85 years ago, and it was a horrible time for our people, only because they were Jewish, and somebody in Germany wanted to kill all of us and pursued us and made us go to camps. They wanted to kill children, grandparents, and this is it. So my story is, it starts with my mother, who was born in Poland, but her father decided to come to Germany, to Bonn, because he wanted his children to be educated at the university. It's the Heidelberg University. So this is where they settled. My father came from a town called Stanislavov. Now it's the Ukraine. It has changed. It was Austrian and everything. They grew up in families that were educated. Everybody went to school. And in 1937, when the Nazi movement came to be, things got really bad. And my parents married at that time in 1937. And little by little, things got impossible to stay there. They were pursued. So they lived at the time from Germany. They lived in Belgium. My mother brought over her brothers, and in 1939 already, the family on my mother's side were taken and were sent to Auschwitz. You heard about the camp. And my father's family, they were sent to a Ukraine camp where they just killed most of the family. I never knew my grandparents. They were killed. I never knew aunts and uncles. So it's something for me, that has always been a void. I would have loved to know my grandparents, and it didn't happen. What happened was that in 1940, my mother and my father decided that couldn't stay in Belgium because the Nazis were marching in, and they asked the police and the gendarmes, the police department, to seek out all the Jews. So my parents decided, they were married, of course, at the time, to go to the south of France. And in 1941, I was born in Toulouse. I'm 85 years old. I just celebrated my birthday. So we were there in a refugee house that was with a lot of other people, and things were not good. So from Toulouse, we walked almost to a neighbor small town where we lived for 2 years, sort of incognito, actually. At one point, they told that all the Jews should be gathered and go to a special town hall and town square. So it went on, and some people went. They asked people to go with Jews, to go with their one little valise to these places. At the time, people didn't realize, really, they didn't know about the extermination camps. So they thought they were going to go to camp to just stay there. Little by little, word came back that they were going to be sent to Drancy or Ravensbrück in Belgium or Auschwitz, some other unfortunate camps also. My mother, it was time for our family to go. And my mother said, look, I was born already in Toulouse. I was born in a Catholic, not church, but what do you call where, it was a hospital, it was a Catholic hospital, and they took my mother in, she wasn't well, and I was born there, and they took care of us, and they said, look, you have to go and you have to hide, and this is how we went to this town next to Toulouse. So here I was already a year and a half, and my mother said to my father, everybody is running to town hall, but instead of going to that place, we are going to go behind and get on the road, and wherever we go will be better than going there. So my father, who trusted my mother's feeling, and she was basically always right, so they went, me in touch. So they went, and there were peasants with cattle and trucks, and they were moving their animals. So my father flagged them. My father was very educated. He spoke 7 languages perfectly. So he knew French, he knew German, he knew Polish, and whatnot. So anyway, so they took him and my family, and they asked where we were from. And my mother, who was brilliant in numbers, but languages she didn't know very well, especially not French. She took German. So, and she was afraid to speak German because even the French people, they didn't like to hear German. They were not very happy with the German invasion and the Nazis around. So my father said, I heard that in Marseille, that's the south of France, there is a joint, the organization is the joint organization. And, but getting there was really very difficult. And this peasant put us down on one spot and said, if you stay here, I know that other people will come and help you out. But you have to hide in the woods, you have to survive in the woods, and eventually you will hear them somehow. And this is really what happened. And from Toulouse and the roads, somebody called for who is the immigrant or the Jews around that we can help. So we went, and it took, I think, my parents a good 3 weeks to get to Marseille by foot, and whatever people would help them. So there were Germans all around. But my mother, who spoke German, they didn't feel that she was Jewish. And my father, same thing, he spoke German and Polish and everything. So, and apparently I was a very mischievous child, and I was running around these Nazis. And so somehow, by a miracle, thank God, we got to Marseille. So Marseille, where it's a town by the seashore, it's the south of France, it's by the Mediterranean, and we had to find, so it was very, very difficult. So my father said, okay, we'll ask people around where we can hide. And some people say, okay, you can go to this factory and just make yourself staying low. And some people, and by the goodness of some people, we were fed whatever they could. They brought milk for me. My mother was expecting a baby already, my sister. And by the grace of God, we were okay there. Some people in France, we heard, were rounded up. In the meantime, my mother found out that her brother was rounded up and sent to one of the camps and never to see again. And her parents perished very early on with the grandparents, uncles, cousins, and the family. So my mother was, my father and my mother, they were very, very religious. And they prayed to God a lot. And my mother said, with faith, it will give us courage to go on, because they had nothing else. They had nothing else. So this is what happened. And in Marseille, we stayed for, 6 to 8 months. My mother was already 6 months pregnant, I think. And somebody said, if you could manage to go to Nice, which is also on the Mediterranean, you have to take the bus, the truck, or whoever is going to take you there. And from Nice, you can go up to the mountains. It's called des Alpes Maritimes, these maritime Alps, very high up. And when you get there, there is a little town that will absorb immigrants and people who are on the run. So my mother told my father, this is what we are going to do. So by foot, at night, walking through the woods, the parks, the roads, whatever, and trying to evade the contingents of Nazis, killing people on the road, Jews, of course. They got to Nice, and in Nice, there was somehow, my father found out, there was an absorption center who would help us. And we stayed there, and the people in Nice they saw my mother, who really was not well. She was emaciated and didn't know if this pregnancy was viable or whatever, because she was afraid to go to the doctor. But having faith, they were hoping for the best. So what happened was in Nice, at the absorption center, they met other Jews who were also on the run, and they heard that up in the mountains, there is one town that would absorb the Jews. Not only that, they had a moratorium in that town because the Italians were there. So the Germans could not get in, and we could live free for we don't know how long. And my mother told my father, because my father wanted to go someplace else, and he said, no, we're going to wait, and somehow we are going up to the mountain. Getting up to the mountains, the town, my sister was born in that town called Saint-Martin-Vésubie, a tiny town, nest into the mountain. And we arrived there. It's an old town with all roads and everything. but the kindest people, the kindest people. So they found lodging for immigrants and for people on the run. That town was like a blessing. So my mother gave birth to my sister, Sylvie, and Sylvie was not well. My mother was not well, but somehow where she delivered was an infirmary, but it was hidden in the back, this infirmary, because the front was a, how do you say, radio station that was captured, and they didn't know what happened in Europe and in the world. And they knew that the Germans could not, that the Italian government was behind and protected that town. So my father said, we cannot stay there. So he organized some of the men that were there to work for the peasants, you know, let it be cattle, let it be agriculture, let it be picking potatoes or whatever. And it lasted only for 4 months. How do I know that this place is so up in the mountains and difficult to reach? Because for my sister's birthday, a couple of years ago, I took her to the place where she was born and showed the house where she was born and the infirmary over there. And what was very remarkable is that we were invited by the mayor of the town, who told he was too young to know, but he heard and he made documentation. And he said, I'm going to show you something. So, but that was when, like 4 years ago. I'm just stopping a little bit because it gets very emotional. So he invited us and took us to a square. And I have the pictures, but I didn't think I would go into it. And the square is a remembrance of the Americans who came to deliver the town after. And all the names of the parachutists. And that memorial is never empty of flowers that the town, old people, young people, everybody knows like this. And then that was like in between. What happened, I'll go back to the war. So we were there for 4 months, 4.5 months, and there was a respite, you know, everybody, Sylvie was sort of well, and my mother recuperated, not well, but so until the moratorium was lifted. And they said, we have to leave. But from the mountains, so high up, where do you leave? So on the map, it's still France, but it's close to Italy. And to get to Italy, they had like a strait, the Strait of Finestre. It's a road where you travel for 3 days, and they were stones. You can see it online. That high, you have to go over it and under to get to the town of Roccavione in Italy. At the time, some people couldn't make it, and children, and everybody was afraid because they knew that at Saint-Martin-Vésubie, the Germans were there. And if we stayed there, we were going to be deported. Now, on that square that I told you about, there are all the names of the people who didn't make it and who were rounded up to send to the camps and killed. So, who took care of us over the Strait of Rakavion? Contrabandists or whatever. And what do you eat? How do you... So these knew how to manage the mountains, and they brought in, for people with children, goats to get milk. So we all drank goat milk, and to survive, there were a lot of nut trees. There were plenty. So we fed ourselves with nuts to sustain ourselves. And after 3-4 days of 24/7 walking, we arrived in Italy. And in Italy, we were greeted by the clergy. And we were housed for 3 months in a stable. But my mother said it was wonderful, it was warm, and we had milk from the cows. So this is it. But the fear of being found and was tremendous. A lot of people couldn't deal with it, and who knows, kill themselves. It was just a terrible, terrible sight. And my mother, with faith, and my father, now with two children, she said, we have to survive. And they did there. So at a certain point, it wasn't good anymore, because the Nazis were coming in with big trucks into the woods, you know, killing everybody inside, because it was already the end of 1943, beginning mid-44. So they felt that they just had to kill whoever was around. And this is what they did. So my family and I and my sister Sylvie, we decided to walk again. Where do we walk? We had to find a passage to go to Switzerland, because Switzerland was neutral. But how do you get there? So my mother said, we will find people on the way to help us, and God willing, you know, we'll do and get to our goal and find, you know. So, but they said it's going to be very difficult, because at the, how do you say, you know, between, they have guards between the countries. And you had to find the guards who were willing to give you a pass or help you go to Switzerland. So that took already a while, and here we are in the woods again. And so somebody said, there is a guard there, and he will help you. But you have to get there, I don't know, 11 o'clock, 9, midnight. But who had a watch? Nobody, you know. So my father went and found out where he was, came back after a day or so, told my mother, okay, in 2 days, we have to gather the kids, and at midnight or during the night, we will have to go, and he will help us to go into Switzerland. So this is what happened. So here we walked again, and my mother, bleeding feet, with a baby. It was, and terrified. You cannot imagine, whoever you met, my mother said, was the thing that everybody had in common was terror, being terrified. Everybody wanted to know what could you do, where do you get food or something, who can save us, it was very difficult. So that particular night, it happened, and we were sent into Switzerland. And we walked from Rocavion to Davos. Davos is in the mountains also. It's a beautiful resort today, but we were there. And on the way, somebody took us by a cattle truck also, and brought us because he knew that on top of, in Davos, there was a big house with some other refugees. And the place was called Chatzalp. I think it's still there. It's a resort now. And finally, we went there. But my father got very ill. My mother got very ill. I was fine. My sister, had to recuperate. And so we lived in this refugee home until the end of the war. And only by the goodness of people around, there's a lot going on, but I can't tell you all about it now. By goodness and goodwill of people, people of faith, people with good heart, people who have sympathy for Jews, we survived. And from Switzerland, we were able to go back to Belgium. And it was very difficult. Now, we arrived in Belgium in the end of 45, where my mother and my father, to find out that the friends are gone, everything, life was gone in general. So they tried to seek out whoever survived. My father went here and there and asked, by word of mouth. And the first thing that my father did was to find a hole and see if there was a Torah scroll that was saved during the war. And somehow he went to this gentleman, remember, Mr. Berkowitz. He said, yes, I know. So he had a scroll, and the first thing they did is to go and pray to thank God. Oh, this is it. So I'll tell you a little bit how I came to America. So I grew up among all survivors. Some women survived alone, lost children, husbands, family. How did they live after the war? It was extremely difficult, but the community got together with the larger community of Belgium at the time and sustained us. So the first thing that I remember is that all of the survivors who had children made sure that they get Jewish education and regular education, higher education, so that they will become whatever they want to be. And this is how I grew up, with other survivors and other families. Now, it was never a doomed time, because people were so happy to be living, because life is more important than anything else. And also, I remember that in 1947, with Israel, everybody wanted to go, and we felt that we were very close to the state of Israel. And we had a community that was supportive, and the children left to work in the summertime in the Parc des Cimes, where they go for oranges and citrus fruit. And Israel was very much part of my life growing up. It still is. So this is it. I have my son volunteered in the army. My daughter Natalie also, packing up, and did other things, but this is it. And I speak to the young people here, never to forget the Holocaust. You know what it is, you know a little bit, you know a lot. But basically, you know who you are. You are Jewish men and women, and hopefully in time you'll feel close to Eretz Israel. That's my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Georgette, for sharing your story. And I can't imagine how emotional it is for you to have to tell it. So we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing it with us. And now we want to open it up for questions. If anybody's wondering anything, students or anyone else, that they would like to ask.
What was it like adjusting to the new environment of America?
What was it like adjusting to the new environment when you came to America?
I can't hear you.
What was it like adjusting to the new environment when you came to America?
Well, I came to America for a very happy reason. I studied chemistry, and I belong to a Jewish organization where a lot of American medical students and other students came and congregate. And I fell in love with Jack Chenitz, and he fell in love with me. And I came to America, and this is it. And thank God I was able to travel back and forth to see my mother, my sisters, my family. And I want you to know also something very lovely. We celebrated my mother 7 years ago, my mother's 100th birthday, and we were about 70 surviving and people, just close family all together. Yeah. So Jack Chenitz became a doctor, and he was a pediatrician. And I came to this country, and being with wonderful in-laws and my husband's family, they're all physicians, but lovely, and took me in. I felt very comfortable, and what united us was religion and love for Israel. That's how I came here. And I'm very proud to be an American now, very.
Just raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll come to you.
Since you were only 4 years old when the war ended. Obviously, a lot of the stories that you told tonight were passed down to you from your parents. How much do you actually remember of the years traveling in the woods, in the mountains, until
Well-
you actually made it to Switzerland?
Do you want me to say again?
I
Okay.
physically and mentally, I don't remember. I remember Switzerland somehow, and I remember when I was 2.5 years old. But I remember, maybe my mother told me over and over again, we had neighbors that were very lovely. And in Bruyères, it's a very tiny town, nestled, and in the center there was a beautiful church. And my friend across the street, who was maybe 6, 7 years old, took my hand and we went to church together. I remember vaguely, hopefully, I hope it is my mind, but if not, my mother told me. So I don't have, but I do remember when we get back to after the war, how it was harrowing getting back to Belgium after being in Switzerland, because the Swiss people, you know, they tried to be nice and everything, but they were maybe overwhelmed with people that were there. And anyway, most of us who lived there survived. Yeah.
So you were saying in 1947, I believe, was there ever an opportunity that, I know there was, hello? Yeah, there was a big exodus to go to Israel during that period of time, but not too many people were able to get in because it was difficult because the British were stopping people from going in. Did your family ever try to go to Israel rather than going back to Belgium? Did they try to get out?
No, we had family in Israel, and the dream of my husband was to retire and to work. We traveled to Israel many, many times, a lot and over. And his dream was to go and to, my family lived in Bnei Brak. And whenever we there, my aunt, she made sure that half the town was coming to see my husband with the kids, with an earache or whatever. So, and we like it. It's my happy place there. And but he didn't live to retirement, and we never made it. I do travel a lot to Israel, and I support their efforts. I speak Hebrew that I learned when my kids went to yeshiva. Yeah, so, yeah. Any Israelis here? No? Are people from Europe here? Oh, where? Okay, very good. So we all Americans, that's fine. Thank you for coming. I'm really honored.
Georgette, can I just ask you, just before we move into our remembrance ceremony, if there's a message or a lesson that you would want our students to kind of think about or carry forward?
I have problems hearing, so you have to tell them.
Is there a message or a lesson, especially for our students, that you would want them to think about or carry forward?
Okay.
Is there a message or a lesson, especially for our students?
I told them,
Yeah.
you know, to not to forget who they are, and to make sure that the story of the Holocaust that's never forgotten, and to feel close, to be proud Jews, and to be also close to the state of Israel.
Beautiful. Thank you. It's so meaningful for everybody to get to hear from you, and especially for the young people, so that they can take your story and these lessons and make sure exactly to keep your story and everyone's story and memory alive as we go forward into the future. So thank you for coming to share your story with us. So I'm going to turn our program over to Rabbi Pinkin and our interfaith clergy. We always think in that spirit of remembrance and never forgetting to use our time during Yom Hashoah to make sure that we're pausing to remember and really think about the lives that were lost and the heroes that stood up, as Georgette shared so beautifully, all of the people that helped her family along the way, and without them, they wouldn't be here today. And many of us, I would say, wouldn't be here today. So to be able to pause for that moment of remembrance and kind of sanctify and honor all the lives lost and all the lives remembered.
I'd like to invite my clergy colleagues to join me up here. Tonight we gather people of different faiths, different traditions, different names for the holy, bound together by one sacred obligation to remember. On Yom HaShoah, we remember the victims of the greatest crime of man against man. We remember the young and the old, the innocent, the children, those who were starved, shot, given lethal injections, gassed, burned, turned to ashes, those who had to run for their lives because they were deemed guilty of the crime of being Jewish. And because of that, 6 million Jews were murdered. We remember what happens when hate takes hold of the human heart and turns it to stone. What happens when victims cry for help and there is no one listening. What happens when humanity fails to recognize that those who are not in our image are nonetheless in God's image. Tonight we will light 6 flames, each flame a world, each flame a witness, each flame a promise.
We light this candle for the 1.5 million children who never grew up. Children who learned to read, but never learned to dream their futures into being. Children who sang, but never danced at their own weddings. Children who asked questions that deserved a lifetime to explore. They played, they loved, they had names. No child is born an enemy. Every child is born a world. 1.5 million worlds extinguished. We remember them. We will not let them be forgotten.
We light this candle for the sacred communities erased from the map of the world. Synagogues that held centuries of prayer. Schools that passed Torah from hand to hand. Neighborhoods where Shabbat was welcomed like a queen. Over 1,000 Jewish communities destroyed. Vilna, Warsaw, Budapest, Amsterdam. Too many towns whose very names are now monuments. The culture, the language, the music, the arguments, the laughter, gone. We remember them. We will not let them be forgotten.
We light this candle for those who fought back in the forests, in the ghettos, in the streets of Warsaw, where young men and women chose to die with weapons in their hands rather than surrender without witness. And we light it for those whose resistance was quieter, but no less courageous. Those who held prayer in secret, those who taught children in hiding, those who wrote diaries so the world would one day know, those who said, "You will not take our humanity." Resistance wore many faces, every one of them holy. We remember them. We will not let them be forgotten. We remember and give thanks for the righteous of the nations, those who are not Jewish and who chose anyway to act, those who had families in their attics, who fed strangers at great risk, who forged papers, opened doors, and said yes when yes could cost them everything. Oskar Schindler, Raoul Wallenberg, Irene Sendler, and thousands more, known and unknown, who refused to become bystanders. They teach us this, that even in the darkest night, a single human being can light a candle of hope. We remember them. We will not let them be forgotten.
We light this candle for the ordinary and extraordinary adults whose lives were stolen, the doctor who healed, the teacher who inspired, the mother who sang lullabies, the father who worked with his hands, the poet, the butcher, the rabbi, the skeptic, the mystic, the newlywed. They were not symbols, they were people. They had arguments and dreams and inside jokes and recipes that were never written down. 6 million individual lives, 6 million irreplaceable worlds. We remember them. We will not let them be forgotten.
We light this candle for those who survived and bore witness to what happened, for the victims, so that robbed of their lives, they would not be robbed also of their deaths. Those who testified when they would rather have been silent, who sat before cameras and classrooms and said, "This happened, I was there, believe me." The survivors are leaving us now, one by one. And so the flame passes to us. We receive it. We will carry it forward. We will not let them be forgotten.
Six flames burn before us. We are people of different faiths.
We worship differently. We pray in different languages. We call upon the holy by different names. But tonight, before these 6 flames, we call upon you together, Almighty God. Help us hear your voice that says in every generation, do not murder, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor, do not oppress the stranger. We know that while we do not have the ability to change the past, we can change the future. We know that while we cannot bring the dead back to life, we can ensure their memories live on and that their deaths were not in vain. And so, on this Yom Hashoah, we commit ourselves to one simple act. Yizkor, we remember.
Please rise for our memorial prayer. El male rachamim, shochein bameromim, hametzeh menucha nechona tachat kanfei השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמות 6 מיליון אחינו ואחיותינו שנהרגו על קידוש השם. בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם. וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר Amen. Together, fully compassionate God on high, to our 6 million brothers and sisters murdered because they were Jews, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. Amen.
Baruch atah b'vo'echa, baruch atah b'tzeitecha. Blessed are we in coming, blessed are we in our going tonight. We came together as witnesses. We leave as bearers of memory, carrying within us the names, the faces, all the worlds that were lost. May the weight of what we remember not burden us into silence, but rather move us into action. May we go forth from this place committed to a future built on compassion, on tolerance, and on kindness, a future worthy of those who did not survive to see it. May everything we do affirm what the Holocaust sought to deny, that every human being is created in the image of the divine. And may each of us be God's partner, building peace, one act of courage, one act of love at a time. Let us all say,
Amen.
thank you, Georgette, for sharing your story. It must exhaust you to do this, but it is a gift you give to us so that we can ensure the future is different. And I thank you all for coming here tonight and bearing witness. I thank those of you from our community, from other communities, and my clergy partners. We all have a lot of holy work to do. Now we go do it. Thank you.